America's Vietnam prisoners of war walked into Hanoi with these values of our ancestors, and they brought us home with honor. Our experiences in Vietnam were precisely that kind of struggle, and I'm going to begin with a short video clip that shares with you how it looked in Hanoi.
Torture has been defined as the application of pain so intense as to cause loss of consciousness or will. Much of the physical abuse begun by the North Vietnamese in late 1965 fits this definition. Often the prisoners would be forced to, in effect, torture themselves by being made to stand, sit, or kneel for unbearably extended periods. One prisoner was forced to lean against a wall from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 6½ days. Another sat on a stool without food or water for over 3 days. When a man passed out or feigned passing out, he was beaten back into position. The worst physical abuse, however, was that applied directly by the captor, whose favorite accessories were ropes, iron bars, and foot stocks, which he combined in a variety of ways. Prisoners were frequently fastened by their ankles in stocks. Then their hands were handcuffed behind their backs and their arms bound together with rope from wrist to elbow. Then a longer rope could be run from the prisoner's arms, around his body, and through the iron bar at his feet to force him into a variety of trussed positions depending on the strength and imagination of the guards. In one variation, the rope was tied to the prisoner's elbows and then tossed over a rafter so that the prisoner's entire body could be hoisted off the floor. In some cells, foot stocks were used to secure the prisoner to his bed. It was a simple matter for the guards to turn these stocks into an even more rigorous instrument of torture. Floggings were another common form of torture prior to 1969. Prisoners were bound to tables or even trees and then beaten with bamboo sticks or thin strips of rubber cut from old truck tires until they lost consciousness. In some floggings, the prisoner was lashed 800 to 1,000 times. Physical punishments like these were generally combined with isolation, denial of food and sleep, withholding of medical care, and general harassment. Throughout captivity, prisoners were subjected to interrogations, many conducted under the conditions shown here. In the early years of the war, the interrogators were mainly interested in military information, such as types of aircraft flown, combat tactics used, and types of weapons employed. In these years, however, interrogations were largely unsuccessful, owing to general ineptness at interrogation, the language barrier, and lack of familiarity with the U.S. military.
Sign it. Then we will see that your arm is treated immediately.
You know I can't do that.
You are trying our patience, criminal.
I've given you all the information.
The greatest pressures, however, were usually reserved for efforts aimed at the extraction of propaganda statements. Although the prisoners were usually successful in evading answers to military questions, there was little opportunity to evade when confronted with a propaganda statement. The prisoner had only two choices: to sign or not to sign. The most extensive campaign of political extortion was initiated in mid-1966, when the Vietnamese began trying to extract written confessions of what they termed war crimes. Prisoners were pressured to confess and apologize for violations of North Vietnamese airspace and for alleged bombings of churches, schools, hospitals, and other civilian facilities. The POWs were likewise pressured to praise the good treatment being accorded them and to submit written requests for the forgiveness of the Vietnamese people. In the face of these threats, not a single POW chose to comply.